Hello again. Our mining heavyweights and leaders have gathered this week at the African Mining Indaba in Cape Town. This year's gathering was held under the theme Evolution of African Mining, Investing in the Energy Transition, ESG and the Economies. But Trade Union Federation Cosatu is not convinced much will be achieved from this gathering. It's described it as a platform where the mining elite meet to reinforce each other's positions and where nothing ever changes for mine workers. Let's discuss their views and why really they have these misgivings with Sizwe Pamla talking on behalf of Cosatu. Mr. Pamla, good afternoon. What are your main misgivings about this mining indaba that's been taking place in Cape Town?
Well, firstly, if you look at the issues of safety in the mining sector, the situation is deteriorating. In 2019, we were starting to be hopeful. I mean, only 50 workers died that year, which is a lot. But considering where the mining sector was coming from, we thought that the situation was improving. In 2020, that number increased to 60. Last year, it was 74. 4 months down the line, we already have 19 workers who have lost their lives. This is a problem because the mining sector has been talking about reducing the number of fatalities, but the situation is getting worse. If you go back to Lily Mine, for example, 6 years later, the mining sector has not lifted a finger to help repatriate the bodies of those mine workers who were trapped at Lily Mine. This is the same mining sector that was prepared to send engineers and experts to Chile to extract mine workers there. But in South Africa, where they make most of their money, they have not lifted a finger. And then when you look at the surrounding communities that host these mine operations, they are dealing with acid mine water, they are dealing with illegal mining. By the way, the syndicates who happen to run these illegal mines, they sell the very same commodities to these mining companies. So they outsource mining to these syndicates, and they are the ones who end up buying these very same commodities that are being mined. So they have not said a word about any of those things. They are focusing on extracting more concessions from government, despite the fact that under COVID lockdown situation, they were literally treated as essential service. They literally forced their employees to vaccinate, and everyone bent over backwards to try and accommodate them. The money they have made, tax cuts in February moved corporate tax from 28 to 27%. They are not sharing any of that money with surrounding communities. They are not sharing any of that money with the workers, as we have seen workers in Northwest still on strike. So these are the challenges that we were hoping that they were going to discuss. And we haven't heard a word from them on this challenge.
Yeah, you say in your statement, it's a very hard-hitting statement which I've read, you sort of speak of what you describe as a cynical collusion between government and the mining sector against workers. What are they colluding on?
Well, if you look, for example, let's go back to the report that was released by the United Nations that showed that the mining sector under-invoiced South African government from 2001 to 2014 by 1.2 trillion. That is the money that is something that should have been investigated coming from a credible body of the United Nations. And the response of the South African government was to take a statement issued by the Mineral Resources Council and say, just because the Mineral Resources Council has said this is not true, then it is not true. SARS never produced any report having investigated that issue. The Reserve Bank never produced any reports disproving what the United Nations have said. Now, if this is not collusion, I don't know what it is. And you look at the concessions that they are extracting from government. In 2017, the same mining indaba said we're sitting with 500,000 workers in the mining sector. We are mechanizing following the Chilean and Canadian model. By 2030, we expect it to be left with 95,000 workers in the sector because we have replaced them with machines. Now, we are not necessarily totally opposed to mechanization because we understand that mechanization is going to help to prolong the life of some of these mines. But the manner in which mechanization is being handled, these new technological solutions have no regard for the people whose lives are being destroyed and people who are displaced by these technologies. There's no effort to reskill the workforce. There's no jobs plan that has been put in place to move from this 500,000 that they are talking about to the 95,000 they anticipate they will have in 2030.
Yeah, you end, just for us as we conclude, Mr. Pamla, you end your statement by saying, and I'm reading it and I'm quoting here, workers can only expect their situation to be worse after the mining Indaba in Cape Town. What is going to become worse for them now going forward, for the workers?
Well, because if you look at what government is doing, the government keeps on cheering the mining sector and saying that jobs, remember the State of the Nation address, we were told that the private sector will create jobs. The mining sector has told us that it is not planning to create jobs. It is, in fact, planning to destroy jobs. So when we have a sixth administration in this country that is hell-bent on outsourcing everything and handing everything to the private sector, so there is no way, there is no motivation from the mining sector to actually change what they are doing. Look at the illegal mining that's been across the country. They are not lifting a finger to actually clean up the mess that they have left behind in those communities.
Okay, thank you very much for your time this hour. Sizwe Pamla, speaking on behalf of Trade Union Federation, COSATU.